It's no secret that between the two conferences in the NBA, the East is easily the weakest one. That's not to say that there aren't great teams that come out of the East, it's just that they often meet their most difficult matchup at the mountaintop. In this year's playoffs, after both Boston and Cleveland shocked everyone by losing in round two after two incredible regular seasons where they each won more than 60 games, it was Indiana that landed in the finals, and they proved to be formidable, but we all know why Tyrese Halliburton will miss all of next season. On top of that, Boston also lost their best player to an Achilles injury on their way out versus New York, so it's also probably no Tatum next year either. And though they avoided major injuries, the Cavs still managed to get worse over the offseason. So an already weak conference just got weaker, and subsequently there is a huge window of opportunity available for the previously middle-tier teams of the Eastern Conference. There are a handful of teams that have a chance to claim the East, so in today's video I wanted to go over them, and I will ultimately make a way too early prediction for who will win the East next year. Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video, and check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. I will probably end up making individual videos about a handful of these teams at some point in this offseason, but for now I wanted to tackle the 6 teams that are in the Eastern Conference that I think can compete for the best team of the conference this year. The Pacers and the Celtics would obviously be in the fold, actually at the top of it, if not for their superstars tearing their Achilles. I do think that both teams can be good in the regular season, especially the Celtics, but not contenders, not really. And as for the other teams in the East, they are either just outright awful, or they are lacking either in the top-end talent department or in the depth department. And if you don't have either of those, you're definitely not going to make it. And if you only have one, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to make it. So let's start with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Disappointing end to the year for them, obviously, winning 64 games, the franchise record. They were expected to be quite the powerhouse going into the playoffs this year. Obviously, they were affected by injuries, but I do not think they were significant enough injuries to justify how much this team crumbled. For a team that is supposedly super deep and a team that is supposed to be great, you should be able to survive having one of your two of your 4 best players out for a couple of games. And yet they lost in 5, I'm pretty sure, to the Pacers. If not that, it was 6. Like, pretty pathetic how they went down. They also blew like a massive lead in one of those games. I can't say that it was just injuries. I think some Cavs fans have gone with that angle, and I think that is just oversimplifying it. A team that was supposed to be as good as the Cavs were supposed to be should have at the very least prolonged that series. I would forgive them more if they lost the series, but in like 6 or 7. I'm almost certain it was 5. They also lost Ty Jerome in free agency, and he obviously played very bad in that Pacers series, but I think that was due to just him having too much of an offensive load. Like, he's a 6th man, and when he was put outside of that 6-man role in a playoff setting, he very much fumbled. So I understand why they weren't exactly super enthusiastic about bringing the guy back, but for the price point that he signed with Memphis, I can't say that I understand why they allowed that to happen. I really think they should have brought him back, even if they had to trade like Max Strus, that guy. Yes, I think they should have done a lot to bring Ty Jerome back, and they did not. And they did not sign anybody who was a replacement, really. So that's a big loss, though he was not that good for them in these playoffs. Same thing can be said for Darius Garland, who was injured. He had a toe injury, and a lot of people like to dismiss a toe injury like that's not a big deal, but especially if you're someone like Darius Garland, who is constantly on the move, whether he's on or off the ball. If you have a toe injury and you're constantly planting on that foot and feeling that twinge of pain every time, it's going to affect your play. Now, he also has been injured in the playoffs in the past, and that's also basically all of his playoff sample. So you can look at it uncharitably as he's a bad playoff performer, or you can look at it charitably, and even the charitable perspective still comes out to saying, hey, Darius Garland's probably going to get injured in the playoffs and be bad. Like, the sample size suggests he will be bad whether it is his fault or not. It is also looking like a LeBron trade to Cleveland will not be happening, as much as I and many other people have been speculating, just because it would be very fun. But I also do legitimately believe it would also get them over the hump. At least that's where I am personally. I do understand that Jarrett Allen is a very good player, and DeAndre Hunter's a pretty damn solid one too, so trading both of them for LeBron would kind of suck. I still think there's a way to make it work without including Jarrett Allen, but every single person who ever talks about the trade includes Jarrett Allen when I think they can make that money up elsewhere. Jarrett only makes 20. That's not a crazy amount. Either way, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. I feel like because the East is as wide open as it is, it makes it make more sense to do something like that. But also the rest of this core is still not even in their 30s yet, so not wanting to trade a young guy, two good young guys really, for LeBron. I get where they're coming from. Again, this is a year. I think if there's any year to like kind of say, fuck the future, we're going in all in right now, it would be this one. Being a 64-win team last year, they are probably still going to be the favorite to come out of the East, if I had to guess. They'll probably be the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they'll probably, as a result, be perceived as the best team. But I must admit, it should be more of a home run for them to be the best in the East, and it's absolutely not. So I don't know. I'm not very confident in them, not as much as I should be, because I loved the Cavaliers last year, and they gave me all the reason to not believe in them. Moving on to the Milwaukee Bucks. I am kind of throwing them in here just because of the Giannis factor alone. That's really it. As much as I would like to say, like, I like AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr. is cool, Miles Turner is a fine addition, the reality is, the only way this team is a contender is if Giannis fucking hard carries. The rest of the roster's like not putrid. Like, I don't mean to suggest that it's Giannis plus two good players and a roster of G Leaguers, but it's primarily a team made up of good minimum guys. And good minimum guys should not be starters, and they shouldn't even be one of your first couple of players off of the bench, and yet that's exactly the case for the Milwaukee Bucks. Banking on Miles Turner taking a huge leap in offensive production is another big facet here. Like, Miles has gone to like 18.5-ish points. If he could get to 22 now that he's more or less the second option on this team, that would be nice, but I think that would be overextension. I don't think just because he can average 20 doesn't mean it will be a particularly good 20. And it also doesn't mean it'll be one that would hold up in the playoffs, as Miles Turner significantly struggled on the offensive end in this year's playoffs, especially in the conference finals and finals, aka when the pressure was on the most. The NBA in the last decade just has not been friendly to superstar carry jobs, but in a conference this week, Giannis could just manage to bully ball his way to the finals. It is plausible. He is the best player in the conference by far, so it's possible. But man, this is really just because Giannis is great. I'm moving on to the Knicks, who ended up making the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They did this with Jalen Brunson and Cat essentially taking turns on offense, never really being optimized properly in a way where there was like a two-man game between them, which really limited the ceiling on that offense. And then there was also the factor of OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges just kind of taking turns being either good or ass. They were like never able to be good in the same game. One of them would have 20 plus on excellent efficiency, and one of them would have 8 on like 2 for 15 shooting. That was also a huge ceiling capper for them on the offensive end. But they made their way to the conference finals due to an elite defense that was an especially elite defense against Boston, who was easily their hardest team to beat. Brunson is the clutchest player in the Eastern Conference and likely at minimum a top 3 player in the East, considering that Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton are going to be out. The Knicks also have that working in their favor. I liked their new additions. Yabusele is good. He's a 3-and-D forward. That's exactly what I was hoping they would go after. And Jordan Clarkson, I'm not a big fan, but on a minimum, that is a great low-risk, high-reward move. Actually, it's not even a risk. It's a no risk reward. It's literally you're risking a roster spot, and that is it. If both of those guys can end up being key rotational pieces in the playoffs, then they just got so much deeper. They went from a team that was 7 players deep to a team that is 9 players deep, and that makes all the difference in today's league. They fired Tom Thibodeau because of his bad offense, and that was something that I had personally been begging for because, again, as I highlighted earlier, ceiling capping here. Mike Brown can bring the offense. He coached that Sacramento Kings team that was literally the best offense ever at the time of that season. So that side of the ball, I expect them to improve dramatically. What's debatable is if the defensive magic that they found in these playoffs can still be there without Tom Thibodeau manning the ship. Are those principles that the team can understand and apply without constant reinforcement, or will not having his chain smoker ass voice barking in their ear constantly end up making them suck on defense? I don't know. If they can be that good defensively and they can get Brunson and Cat playing off of each other more, get a 2-man game going there, if they can ask OG to create shots off of the dribble less and get him and Bridges more consistent actual set offensive plays, then they might end up being the favorite out east. Now, the first 3 teams, I think they were pretty intuitive. The team that had the best record last year, the team with the best player in the conference, and the team that was in second place to the eventual winning Pacers. The next 3 are going to be wild cards. First, we have the Atlanta Hawks. Trey is on the last year of his deal, and Atlanta decided to go all in on trying to keep him with a handful of nice moves in this offseason. They traded practically nothing for Kristaps Porzingis, and they signed Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard. The big wild card inside this wild card of a team is Kristaps Porzingis. If he were to be healthy for a playoff run, then that is huge. That is a massive swing factor as to how good this team will be, but it's not a great if to bet on. For the last 2 playoff runs now, he has not been healthy. He contributed more in the championship year than this one because there was more games to be played, but dude has been a no-show, more of a theory than an actual player in a playoff setting. Zachary Risachet also improved a ton as the year went along. He was kind of a disaster on offense his first couple of months, but I think he averaged like 15-something points per game for his last couple of months in the league. He could have a second-year leap. He could become a more productive offensive player, and he's a really good, versatile defensive player. Onyeka Okongwu will probably also be getting more opportunity than ever in his career, because I'm certain Porzingis will at the very least miss decent stretches of the regular season, and Okongwu will probably be starting plenty, though he was starting quite a bit in this previous year, borderline splitting those minutes with Clint Capella, and all of his career, he's just kind of had a tight leash with Clint Capella breathing down his neck. I hope Okongwu gets some real opportunity this next coming year. Jalen Johnson is also back, and he was a borderline most improved player candidate before he got hurt. He could come back even better. Jalen, Zachary, Okongwu, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Porzingis, Dyson Daniels, and Luke Kennard is a pretty damn solid 2 through 7. There is a lot of defense there, and there is a lot of length. Jalen Johnson's like 6'9", Zachary 6'10", 6'11", Okongwu 6'10", Nickeil Alexander-Walker 6'5", but I believe he has a 7-foot wingspan. Porzingis is 7'3", Dyson Daniels is 6'5" with long-ass arms, and Luke Kennard. We also know that Trey can take them to at least an Eastern Conference Finals. He's done that before, and I imagine he can, in the right matchup, face a team less formidable than those Sixers were back in 2021. If the stars align, I could see the Hawks winning the East. But then we move on to the Detroit Pistons. I was initially hesitant of Detroit after free agency and thus hesitant to put them in this video. I thought they were only getting Karis LeVert in free agency, and that was essentially going to be the end of it. I didn't realize they had more money to spend, which they then used to get Duncan Robinson. And Duncan signed at like the 11th hour, right after we uploaded the damn video reviewing signings in free agency. Duncan Robinson signs with the Pistons and makes all of my point about Karis LeVert being a bad signing dumb. So yeah, that didn't age well immediately. Karis is honestly better than Dennis Schroeder, especially at scoring off of the dribble, which I think is essential for this team because they are in short supply in that area. And Duncan is a better all-around player than Malik Beasley while being able to match his gravity as a shooter. I don't think he's going to be able to match his three-point total of the previous year. I don't think he'll be able to have that great of a shooting season, but he's still going to give you 40+% on 7 to 8 attempts per game. Defenses are still going to be stuck to him like glue, the same way that they are Beasley. So in terms of just how the offense functions, more or less a perfect replacement. They did lose Tim Hardaway Jr. without any replacement for him, but they also do, of course, have Jaden Ivey coming back. The only way that Detroit is a contender is if Jaden Ivey breaks out as a star or they trade for one, probably including him in said deal. Cade, I just don't think I don't think he's ready to be a bona fide superstar yet, not next year. And I'm also not certain he'll ever get there. He kind of needs to up his ability to get to the free throw line for me to feel confident in that, because otherwise he's a guy who doesn't drive as much as I'd like, and he's really jump shot reliant for a guy whose jump shot is just okay. But with that in mind, this is a guy who's probably not quite a superstar, and his second option is Tobias fucking Harris. So to win the East, I do think they're going to need another star caliber player. That might be different if they could possibly make up for it with depth, but the core around Cade is just okay. I wouldn't describe it as like an excellent group of role players. But if they did get a star, either again through Ivey's improvement or hell, even like a Lauri Markkanen level guy being traded to them, I think would do wonders. I think if they could form, at the very least, an average, a top 15 offense, while being a top 5 defense, which I believe they were last year, at the very least since the turn of the calendar year, and they certainly were in the playoffs, that would be enough to be a contender in this year's East. Again, you're going to need some stars to align, but you could say that for all 3 of these wild card teams. Last but not least, the wild card team that I do feel is the least wild cardy. They're the team I feel the most confident in out of this group of teams that have otherwise not been recognized as contenders. I think the Magic are building something that is reminiscent of the 2024 Celtics without overly relying on three-point shooting in the same way. Paolo and Franz are your versatile star wings in substitute for Tatum and Jalen. I actually think Franz is probably going to end up being a little bit better of a secondary option, at least offensively speaking. Paolo, I don't know if he'll get as good as Tatum, though, so I don't know. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but you get where I'm coming from here. It's these big wings who are good scorers, good defenders, and in the case of both of them, rather than just one of them, excellent playmakers. Then you have Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane, who are essentially your Drew Holiday, Derek White backcourt. Suggs being that Celtics Drew who's like, yeah, not a lot of shot creation and playmaking, but still a little bit, and then mostly just being a catch and shoot guy, especially out of the corner, and then being a dog on the defensive end. And then with Bane, you're getting your lead ball handler at times, although it's kind of just going to be a ball handler by committee thing between him, Franz, and Paolo. But that's kind of how it went with Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. So again, 24 Celtics vibes are very strong here. Desmond Bane can be your Derek White, where he's the ball handler and even more of a high volume shooter. He's not going to be as good defensively as Derek White, but at least he's bigger, so you do have that more versatility at the very least. I think that comparison makes sense. Now, they don't have Porzingis, but technically the 2024 Celtics barely fucking had Porzingis, and they really are just doing this center by committee thing, but at the very least, their options at the center position are solid. Wendell Carter, John Isaac, or Goga Bitadze. Whichever choice you go with, they're a solid 5. You can go with any of the 3 at any point. They have different things that they can do. I think they should feel good about that, even though I would prefer they trade for a more bona fide starting caliber center. Yes, Mo Wagner is also there. He can score a little bit, I guess. Bane is a perfect third option for them since he's primarily known as a three-point shooter, and three-point shooting is easily the worst thing about this Magic roster. He can also take on ball handling responsibilities. I expect Suggs to be a much better three-point shooter with less offensive responsibility this year. He had a huge dip in percentage because he had to do so much due to regular season injuries, but I do believe that he's at the very least a pretty good three-point shooter. So I think you're going to have two great three-point shooters out there, Paolo and Franz. Hopefully they can be good enough in that category. You have a ton of playmaking and ball handling. In fact, out of your core four, all of them can dribble and pass really, really well. And 3 out of 4 of them are 20-plus point per game scorers. Desmond Bane, I really don't see much reason why his point per game number would go down too significantly in the context of this team, because he does a lot of his work off of the ball. He'll still get plenty of ball handling opportunities with this team, especially because he's going to be a second option a lot more than he's going to be a third option, just due to how the lineups get staggered. And if I had to guess, I don't know what the numbers look like at the top of my head, but I think Desmond Bane's a 20-point scorer, whether he's the first option, the second option, or the third option. He just kind of gets to that mark pretty consistently. He's a very flexible player, and I personally do not have any qualms with what Orlando gave up to get him. A lot of people were freaking out about that. I'm like, nah, dude, I think he's going to be a great third option. And with all of that said, they're still going to have a great defense. Suggs is a dog on that end, and Paolo and Franz are super switchable. 2 6'10" wings who can guard 1 through 5 a lot of the time. Obviously, 1 through 5, I'm not referring to Joel Embiid or Jokic when I say that, but otherwise, 2 forwards, 6'10", that can defend most point guards and most centers, and then everything in between. That's crazy. Like the Pistons, I feel like if they can just get to the point of being an average to slightly above average offense, add that plus the defense, and you will have enough for the Orlando Magic to be contenders. And I actually give the Magic a higher likelihood than the Pistons of making this above average offense, because I think with a full year, hopefully you get a good amount of health, you get that 4-man lineup to play as much as possible. I think you're going to get a good offense out of that. Desmond Bane really, I think, unlocks this team a lot. He's not just good, he's good for this context, and I think that matters a lot. Hello, voiceover Rusty Buckets here. I realized after recording this video that I should have also included the Philadelphia 76ers in it. I apologize for that oversight, but yeah, I'll go over the case for them real quick. Sorry, they're not going to be mentioned in the final part of the video, but they would not have won the best contender for me anyways. But there is, of course, the possibility that Joel Embiid has at least a somewhat healthy season. That's a difficult thing to bet on right now, but it is a possibility, so it needs to be considered. Jared McCain is coming back. He can be great. I think he's going to be good for them. And then also, Quentin Grimes is currently an unrestricted free agent. Side plug, we have a video about other available free agents, the people who are still available, up on Little Rusty Bucket, so go check that out. But Quentin Grimes averaged 20 points per game for them in the last 28 games of the year. Obviously, he was higher up on the shot chart than he will be under typical circumstances, but he should still be a damn good player if they can bring him back. So Maxey, McCain, Grimes, Paul George, Joel Embiid as a starting lineup is pretty damn good. Not the best depth on this team. I'm sure there are things that could be improved. Would have been nice if they kept Yabusele, but they're pretty good. They have a chance to be very good. If Joel Embiid can put together a healthy season, now would be a hell of a time to do it. But yeah, I'm not making that bet personally, but it is in the cards. But with all of that laid out, which team am I predicting to come out of the East? Well, Let's start by eliminating 3 of them. I'm going to go with the Bucks, the Hawks, and the Pistons. Detroit, I'm cutting because I really think they need a player that they don't currently have, or at least I don't know that they have. Perhaps Ivy breaks out, but I don't know that that's going to happen. Perhaps they trade for a star, but I don't know that that's going to happen. If that does happen, I'm perfectly allowed to readjust my prediction, but with the information I currently have 3 months before the season's even starting, I gotta cut the Pistons. Milwaukee, because I just don't believe in carry jobs like that, especially in today's league. You'll never see me disparage the talent of Giannis, but the game is not just about having the best player. And for the Atlanta Hawks, I do think that they have a chance to contend, but so much of it is banking on Porzingis. And without him, it's just last year's roster with some internal improvement plus one more good 3-and-D guy. That would make them contending kind of a stretch, even if it would make them one of the top seeds in the East. I think that's very possible. Contender, again, you tell me you get a healthy Porzingis for the whole playoff run, and I'll listen to you about it. I'm making bets based on what I know, and what I know is Porzingis always gets injured. That leaves us with the Cleveland Cavaliers, New York Knicks, and Orlando Magic. I honestly don't feel great picking between any of these 3. I could change my mind immediately after this video. The Cleveland model has proven kind of wonky. All of their defense is anchored by 2 guys, and the offense is mostly anchored by 2 guys. They have all of their offensive eggs in one basket and all of their defensive eggs in one basket, which just has not proven to be a good formula in a playoff setting. It allows you to inherently have an exploitable offense and an exploitable defense. But they were also by far and away the best team in the East for a majority of last year. The Celtics kind of caught up towards the end, but not quite. But I don't know. They should be by far and away the best, but they just don't feel like they are. I hate saying this. I hate saying bad things about these Cavs. I like that team so much. The Magic, they might need another year. I might be jumping the gun on them, and with New York, I do fear that their defense will fall off with Tom Thibodeau gone. So I guess if I had to choose, I'm going to go with New York, with Cleveland as my backup pick and Orlando as my backup pick. I'm just a little too shaken by the Cavs, and the whole fucking run to the conference finals with the Knicks, I was saying to anyone who would listen that this team's ceiling is being limited by the coaching on offense. And if Mike Brown can break that ceiling without the defense taking too much of a hit, then I think they will be the best team in the Eastern Conference. And this isn't necessarily a wins or loss prediction. I think the Cavs will have the best record in the East pretty much no matter what, but I think I'm picking the Knicks to win the East, which is interesting. I have never, ever picked the Knicks to go to the finals for pretty obvious reasons. There has not been many opportunities, but the East this year, this is the time to strike. And in fact, the last time the Eastern Conference was so obviously, disgustingly vacant was 1999, and the Knicks made the finals that year. So, seems like the track record suggests this is their way of getting there. Let me know what you think, who you think is going to be coming out of the East in the comments down below. But that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.